Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Duncan, I don't get to see you often because of committee assignments, but when I read your comments, particularly on education issues, the way you link opportunity and accountability, I think makes a lot of sense and ought to be our philosophical underpinnings in this area. Also, I want to take note of the fact that constituents often ask whether I've had to guard you in any basketball game with the president, and I have said, thank goodness, no, because he is talented, and I was too small.
I don't get that question.
Well, I was too small, and I made up for it by being slow, neither of which are challenges for the Secretary. Here's my question, Mr. Secretary, and it deals with the question of higher ed and the question of what our policy is going to be in the future. Historically, we have said our focus will be on access and trying to make sure we get students in the door. And I don't take a back seat, and I know you don't, in terms of access, Pell Grants and Stafford loans at affordable rates. But it seems to me we're now moving in the direction of adding another component, and that is value. Yeah. That's what the administration has sought to do in the scorecard. That's, as you know, what's behind the legislation I have with Senator Rubio, the bipartisan bill, the Student Right to Know Before You Go Act. And I think we both want to make sure that we can get information out about graduation rates and debt levels and remedial education. And my reason for bringing it up is the question of how it's going to be possible to get what students are likely to earn when they get a degree from a particular school. And I have students ask me about this, constantly. They don't want this to be the only measure of their education, but they want it to be one measure. Now, on the issue of employment and earnings, the scorecard, and we just looked at it, is basically left blank. And I know this is a very difficult area to address administratively, and that's because of the existing congressional ban on the unit record type system. So Senator Rubio and I worked with a variety of colleagues and experts, privacy experts, education experts, but what is your thinking in terms of how we can particularly find a way, because I think senators of all political philosophies want to work with the administration on this. How can we figure out a way to get that information out in a usable fashion? I think our bill is one. It's not the only possible way, but particularly because I think the administration bumped up to the congressional ban with respect to unit records. How do you see tackling this?
So let me just back up for a second. Your basic premise is exactly right, that yes, we want to encourage access and opportunity, and desperately have to do that. But for me, the goal is not to have more kids enter college. The goal is to have a lot more complete college. And collectively, we have not had enough either incentives or disincentives, carrots and sticks, to change behavior there. You talked about time to completion and other things. We have a lot of hard work to do. Just so appreciate your leadership. I appreciate you working in a bipartisan way. What we tried to do last year is on a voluntary basis produce a scorecard. All we can do on a voluntary basis is do that. If Congress acts, then we have a chance to do something. We hope to add earnings to the scorecard later this year, and we all need to collectively find this right balance. It's critically important that we maintain individuals' privacy and have all those safeguards there, but at the same time have much greater transparency. And I said earlier before you were here that it's so interesting to me that we have unquestionably the best system of higher education in the world, 7,000 choices, for-profit, nonprofit, public, private, 4-year, 2-year. But we have a very inefficient marketplace. We have young people choosing the wrong schools for the wrong reasons. It's because the process is so overwhelming. So whatever we can do to provide transparency, I'm a big believer that that helps to change behavior. Last thing I'll say quickly is when I led the Chicago Public Schools, we tracked college completion rates for our grads very closely. We saw young people with identical scores, identical GPAs, going to 2 different schools, some graduating at 80% and some graduating at 25%. The difference was staggering. And so we frankly started to steer kids towards certain institutions of higher education and frankly away from others. And I think we need to have a much more informed population. And again, the goal is not to go, the goal is to walk out with a diploma at the back end.
Well, those are points well made, and I think what I'd like to do is have our staff follow up with yours. They've been very helpful, because I think that the challenge, particularly administratively, is you bump up against this flawed, congressional, ban, and then there's some questions about what you can collect and what you can publish, and is it short-term or is it long-term? We can get this done. I appreciate the approach the administration is talking about, and this, in my view, Mr. Secretary, would be a transformation of federal education policy. It will keep our historic focus on access, and that's something that we should never budge an inch away from. But I think adding value, as you and the President want to do, makes a lot of sense, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Madam Chair.